Hmm. Good day, everybody. I'm here. Good morning. Good day. Good morning. It is Pacific Standard Time, and I've been here 1811 days to give you morsels of a thought of wisdom. Today is Words and Wisdom Wednesday, and we're learning words of wisdom, hopefully, that we know the right things to do. Morsels of a thought of wisdom will give us a chance to commit acts of virtue. The fact is that when you commit acts of virtue, you're actually doing the right thing. Whenever you're doing the right thing, it also means that you know what you're doing is true to yourself if you're conscious of it. Sometimes people do things that are virtuous without thinking about it, but it doesn't mean that they're not being virtuous. They're still doing the act. I am simply reading to you what other people say about wisdom, and we are getting synopses of other people's lives. Well, William J. Bennett compiled the Book of Virtues. He is the editor with commentary of a treasury of great moral stories. A treasury of great moral stories. And today I wanted to focus on honesty. To be honest is to be real, genuine, authentic, and bona fide. To be dishonest is to be partially feigned, forged, fake, or fictitious. Honesty expresses both self respect and respect for others. Dishonesty fully respects neither oneself nor others. Honesty imbues lives with openness, reliability, and candor. I apologize for ever making you wait 4 hours at a time or even just doing it at the same time. I'm trying to do it at the same time every day. Um, on the days that I have been told that it would be good if I would simply um, tell people I was taking a break instead of expecting them to come at random hours of the day. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, um, if I'm not here, come back the next day and see, because I may do it, I will do it every day, but I am sometimes not able to get to the camera in time at 6:10 in the morning. I am hoping that I can change my whole routine and bring it to you at 5:10 in the morning soon. And anyway, honesty imbues lives with open. This is William J. Bennett talking here. Honesty imbues lives with openness, reliability, and candor. It expresses a disposition to live in the light. Dishonesty seeks shade, cover, or concealment. It is a disposition to live partially in the dark, partly in the dark. Why would anyone want to be dishonest? That is a question with which the Irish satirist Jonathan Swift poignantly confronts his readers in A Voyage to the Highlands in Gulliver's Travels. The Highlanders were such rational creatures that they found dishonesty almost unintelligible. As one of them explains to Gulliver, the use of speech was to make us understand one another and to receive information of facts. Now, if anyone said the thing which was not, the his awkward locution for referring to the curious practice of telling lies. These ends were defeated. Dishonesty would have no role to play in a world that revered reality and was inhabited by fully rational creatures. Human beings are not fully rational. However, as Swift delighted in pointing out, humans, unlike humans, harbor a disparate array of tendencies and impulses that do not spontaneously harmonize with reason. Human beings need both practice and study over time to become persons of integrity and effective goodwill. And until they have achieved such a state, they may do all sorts of things that prudence tells them had better be concealed. Lying is an easy tool of concealment, and when often employed, all too early hardens into a malignant vice. Honesty is of pervasive human importance. Quote, I hate that man like the very gates of death who says one thing but hides another in his heart, end quote, cries the anguished Achilles in Homer's Iliad. Every social activity, every human enterprise requiring people to act in concert is impeded when people aren't honest with one another. Honesty here is not just veracity, truth telling, but the honesty of an quote, honest day's work for an honest day's pay, end quote. It is the honesty that the prophet Jeremiah sought. Quote, run to and fro through the streets of Jerusalem, look around and take note, search its squares and see if you can find one person who acts justly and seeks truth, end quote. It is the honesty that the cynic, capital C, philosopher Diogenes sought later in Athens and Corinth, an image that has proved remarkably durable. Quote, with candle and lantern, capital C, capital L, and when the sun shined, capital S, I sought honest men, capital H, capital M, but none I could find, end quote. As a 7th century chapbook put it. Okay. Pinocchio's lie-lengthened nose is an image scarcely 100 years old now, but it too has happily found a place among our enduring popular stories. Now, what we are reading is The Book of Virtues by William J. Bennett, a treasury of great moral stories. We're reading about honesty. William J. Bennett continues. How is honesty best cultivated? Like most virtues, it is best developed and exercised in harmony with others. The more it is exercised, the more it becomes a settled disposition. But there is a quick answer that may be given in 3 words. Take it seriously. Just like when you go skiing, I'm going to say, I'm going to stop in the middle of this paragraph to mention that there was a time when I would go skiing and I would be very, very tired by 2 p.m. Now, that's not unusual. However, the tiredness I would feel was the kind that would make me almost incapable of skiing safely without injuring myself. And so every time I would go there and ski until 2 p.m. at the top of a mountain, I'd be looking down and going, why am I here? I don't like skiing. But, I've had a fun all day. So, am I being honest with myself? Am I? Do I take it seriously? And when I skied one time, I saw 2 women skiing by me and I was struggling. And I said, are you all right? And I said, next time I take my before ski season workout seriously. Take it seriously because your safety could really depend on it. Anyway, honesty. Take it seriously. Because, in fact, your safety could depend on that too. Take recognition, this is back to the book. Take recognition of the fact that honesty is a fundamental condition for human intercourse and exchange, for friendship, for all genuine community. But be sure to take it seriously for itself, not just as, quote, the best policy, end quote. Quote, honesty is better than all policy, end quote, as the philosopher Immanuel Kant perceptively put it. There is all the moral difference in the world between taking the condition of one's self seriously and taking pains not to get caught. Parents say, Don't let me catch you doing that again. And that is all right, but a good, honest life is more than that. Moral development is not a game of, quote, catch me if you can, end quote. It is better to focus clearly on what really matters, the kind of person one is. He says that in italics. And this is why my show is about virtue, taking on things to do that are the right things to do is a form of wisdom, and doing them is actually virtue. Being the kind of person that would bring more virtue into the world is make it makes you an honest person. It forces you to be honest. It really forces you to be honest. There are systems in the world and governments say that force you not to be honest, and we have that moral dilemma to deal with every single day. Anyway, what other people say is really good if it is the right thing to do. Okay, an honest heart will always find friends, and here's a story. The Boy Who Never Told a Lie. It's a poem that he wrote himself. Once there was a little boy with curly hair and pleasant eye, a boy who always told the truth and never, never told a lie. And when he trotted off to school, the children all about would cry, there goes the curly-headed boy, the boy that never tells a lie. And everybody loved him so because he always told the truth. That every day as he grew up, 'twas said, there goes the honest youth. And when the people that stood near would turn to ask the reason why, the answer would always the answer would be always this, because he never tells a lie. You like them when they never tell a lie, yeah? The Boy Who Cried Wolf by Aesop. We know this one. This may be Aesop's most famous fable, and for good reason. The fastest way to lose what we call our, quote, good character is to, end quote, is to lose our honesty. There once was a shepherd boy who kept his flock at a little distance from the village. Once he thought he would play a trick on the villagers and have some fun at their expense. So he ran toward the village, crying out with all his might, wolf, wolf, come and help! The wolves are at my lambs. The kind villagers left their work and ran to the field to help him. But when they got there, the boy laughed at them for their pains. There was no wolf there. Still another day, the boy tried the same trick, and the villagers came running to help and were laughed at again. Then one day a wolf did break into the field and began killing the lambs. In great fright, the boy ran back for help. Wolf, wolf, he screamed, there is a wolf in the flock, help! The villagers heard him, but they thought it was another mean trick. No one paid the least attention or went near him, and the shepherd boy lost all his sheep. This is the kind of thing that happens to people who lie. Even when they do tell the truth, they will not be believed. That's a moral. That is a moral. Now, we go to the honest woodsman. The Honest Woodman, adapted from Emily Poulsson. Emily is Emily, Poulsson is Poulsson. This story is retold from a poem by Jean de La Fontaine, I guess, 1621 to 1695, who, like Aesop, was a master of the fable. Once upon a time, out in the green, silent woods near a rushing river that foamed and once upon a time, out in the green, silent woods near a rushing river that foamed and sparkled as it hurried along, there lived a poor woodcutter who worked hard to make a living for his family. Every day he would trudge into the forest with his strong, sharp axe over his shoulder. He always whistled happily as he went because he was thinking that as long as he had his health and his axe, he would earn enough to buy all the bread his family needed. One day he was cutting a large oak tree near the riverside. The chips flew fast at every stroke, and the sound of the ringing axe echoed through the forest so clearly you might have thought a dozen woodchoppers were at work that day. By and by, the woodman thought he would rest a while. He leaned his axe against the tree and turned to sit down, but he tripped over an old gnarled root, and before he could catch it, his axe slid down the bank and into the river. The poor woodman gazed into the stream, trying to see the bottom, but it was far too deep there. The river flowed over the lost treasure just as merrily as before. What will I do? The woodman cried. I've lost my axe. How will I feed my children now? Just as he finished speaking, up from the lake rose a beautiful lady. She was the water fairy of the river, and came to the surface when she heard his sad voice. What is your sorrow? She asked kindly. The woodman told her about his trouble, and at once she sank beneath the surface and reappeared in a moment with an axe made of silver. Is this the axe you lost? She asked. The woodman thought of all the fine things he could buy for his children with that silver, but the axe wasn't his, so he shook his head and answered, My axe was only made of wood. The water fairy laid the silver axe on the bank and sank into the river again. In a moment rose and showed the woodman another axe. Perhaps this one is yours, she asked. The woodman looked. Oh, no, he replied. This one is made of gold. It is worth many times more than mine. The water fairy laid the golden axe on the bank. Once again she sank. Up she rose. This time she held the missing axe. That is mine, the woodman cried. That is surely my old axe. It is yours, said the water fairy, and so are these other two now. They are gifts from the river because you have told the truth. And that evening the woodman trudged home with all three axes on his shoulder, whistling happily as he thought of all the good things they would bring for his family. We have been reading about honesty. Hello there, I can see somebody. Good morning. I can see somebody, and someone sees you. That's the next one. I kid you not. This is what it says. It says someone sees you. We are reading from William J. Bennett of the Book of Virtues, a treasury of great moral stories. And today we have started on the chapter on honesty, the volume on honesty. Someone sees you. This folk tale reminds us that an act of dishonesty is never truly hidden. Once upon a time, a man decided to sneak into his neighbor's fields and steal some wheat. If I take just a little from each field, no one will notice, he told himself, but it will add up to a nice pile of wheat for me. So he waited for the darkest night, when thick clouds lay over the moon, and he crept out of his house. He took his youngest daughter with him. Daughter, he whispered, you must stand guard and call out if anyone sees me. The man stole into the first field to begin reaping, and before long the child called out, Father, someone sees you. The man looked all around, but he saw no one, so he gathered his stolen wheat and moved on to a second field. Father, someone sees you, the child cried again. The man stopped and looked all around, but once again he saw no one. He gathered more wheat and moved to a third field. A little while passed, and the daughter cried out, Father, someone sees you. Once more the man stopped his work and looked in every direction, but he saw no one at all. So he bundled his wheat and crept into the last field. Father, someone sees you, the child called again. The man stopped his reaping, looked all around, and once again saw no one. Why in the world do you keep saying someone sees me? He angrily asked his daughter. I've looked everywhere and I don't see anyone. Father, murmured the child, someone sees you from above. Yes, yes. In Chinese, there's a saying, 老天有眼, that God has eyes. Adapted from J. Berg Eisen, Essenwein and George Washington and the Cherry Tree. Adapted from J. Berg Essenwein and Marietta Stockard. The chopping down of the cherry tree is surely the most famous truth-telling tale in America. It first appeared in 1806 in the fifth edition of Mason Locke Weems' imaginative biography of Washington entitled The Life of Washington, with curious anecdotes equally honorable to himself and exemplary to his young countrymen. Here is an early 20th century rendition. When George Washington was a little boy, he lived on a farm in Virginia. His father taught him to ride, and he used to take young George about the farm with him so that his son might learn how to take care of the fields and horses and cattle when he grew older. Mr. Washington had planted an orchard of fine fruit trees. They were apple trees, peach trees, pear trees, plum trees, and cherry trees. Once, a particularly fine cherry tree was sent to him from across the ocean. Mr. Washington planted it on the edge of the orchard. He told everyone on the farm to watch it carefully to see that it was not broken or hurt in any way. It grew well, and one spring it was covered with white blossoms. Mr. Washington was pleased to think he would soon have cherries from the little tree. Just about this time, George was given a shiny new hatchet. George took it and went about chopping sticks, hacking into the rails of fences, and cutting whatever else he passed. At last he came to the edge of the orchard, and thinking only of how well his hatchet could cut, he chopped into the little cherry tree. The bark was soft, and it cut so easily that George chopped the tree right down and then went on with his play. Well, I cannot tell a lie, father. I did it with my hatchet. I was playing, and I did not think, George stammered. And now the tree will die. We shall never have any cherries from it. But worse than that, you have failed to take care of the tree when I asked you to do so. George's head was bent and his cheeks were red from shame. I am sorry, father, he said. Mr. Washington put his hand on the boy's shoulder. Look at me, he said. I'm sorry to have lost my cherry tree, but I am glad that you were brave enough to tell me the truth. I would rather have you truthful and brave than to have a whole orchard of the finest cherry trees. Never forget that, my son. George Washington never did forget. To the end of his life, he was just as brave and honorable as he was that day as a little boy. That's a cherry tree story. We all know that one. So it was a tough question. George staggered under it for a moment, but quickly recovered. Yeah, he told the truth. Okay, so here we are. I am very glad to be able to read these stories to you. I'm very glad to be able to come to you with morsels of a thought of wisdom. I hope that I've been collecting information that's wisdom, not just information. Wisdom is like sculpted glass, and there, I'm back just enough to say goodbye. Morsels of a thought of wisdom, words of wisdom Wednesday. Thank you for coming. Okay, old Kinderheck. Bye bye.